wanted to make a quick video about just some basic ideas around playing chord tones in the key of G when you're strumming just a country tune or something, even a little bluegrass. The idea for this video really comes from thinking about what most people probably want to do with the guitar, and I know there's a lot of folks that want to just strum guitar, sing songs, and get together with friends or go to jam sessions, and it feels like 90% of the time you're going to be playing in the key of G, just strumming. And how do you make that more interesting? You know, if you've been strumming these open chords for a while, this video is really about figuring out what you can do when you want to play some lead over those chords, or if you want to make your strumming a little more interesting, or if you want to add bass lines. The idea really comes from the idea that each of these chords are made up of what are called chord tones, or also referred to as a triad. So each of these chords is made up of the 1, the 3, and the 5 within the respective scale. So for the key of G, if you're playing a G chord, the first note is the G, that's the 1 of the chord. The third is G, A, B. So B is the third of the G chord, and then the 5 is G, A, B, C, D. So the triad would be G, B, and D. Wow, alright. Similarly, when you go over to the C chord, and you're trying to figure out, well, what notes are actually within that C chord, you do the same thing. So C is your 1, and then try and find your third, so count up, C, D, E. So E is the third of the C chord, and then you can count all the way up to the 5, so C, D, E, F, G. That leaves you with C is your 1, E is your 3, and then the G note is the 5 of the chord. And then finally, the last chord in this normal 1, 4, 5 progression, it's D, and that one, the 1 is D, and then again we're counting up from D, but remember we're in the G major scale, so we have an F sharp to contend with. So it'd be D, E, F sharp. So F sharp is our third in the triad. So D, F sharp, and then if we just keep going up, F sharp, G, and then A. So A would be the 5. So D is the 1, F sharp is the 3, and then A is the 5. You might just want to memorize that. Takes a moment, write it down, whatever you need to do. The triad for G is G, B, and D. The triad for C is C, E, G. And the triad for D is D, F sharp, A. Okay, so that's really all the theory that you need to know. The next part of this is just figuring out where those notes lie within the chords that you're already playing. And by recognizing which notes you're actually playing with your fingers or strumming open strings, then you can bring those notes to life. And the key here is that when you're playing a certain genre of music, there are certain musical ideas where certain notes within those chords are emphasized that makes it sound like that genre. So the main point that I'll kind of convey today is that the third of the chord that you're playing in country music sounds really good when you slide from the flat third into the third. So for the G, you're going to look for all of the B notes that you're playing. In this case, you have a B note here, and if you slide from the first fret on the A string up into the second fret on the A string, you're sliding from B flat to B. So in your triad, that's the third. So when you hear someone play the classic G run, the reason why that sounds good is because you have that walk up from the flat third into the third. Again, the same thing you can do that sound when you're playing the C chord and you're hitting the third of the C, which is E, if you play the flatted third, which in this case is the first fret on the D string, E flat, into the second fret, which is E natural, that's going to give you that same sound. So when you're playing your G chord and you want to give a tag or add a little fill, you can do that flat third into the third. It's really common. When your C comes around, guess what? You find your third in that chord shape. In this case, I'm playing with my middle finger here. If you bring your index finger up, you can get that flat third into the third sound. So that way, there I was just hammering off that flatted third into the D note, back down to the C. So that'd be just like this. So flatted third to third, playing the 5, the 5th note of the triad in C is the G, then the flatted third, which is E flat, to D, down to C. So you've heard that sound before a lot, but once you start to realize that, oh, that's all playing around with that flatted third to third, hit that 5, flatted third again, in this case I'm hitting the 2, down to the C. So that sound is all around those chord tones. So whatever chord you're playing, if you know that it sounds good, slide up from that flat third into the third, and then hit the 1. So once we get to D, you take that F natural, first fret, first string, that E, high E string, and you slide up into F sharp. Like I said, that's the third of the triad. Similarly, if you slide up into the 5 of the chord, also sounds good. So if you've got that D chord, your A note here, this is the 2nd fret on the G string, that's the 5 of the triad. Or if you want to hit the F sharp up here on the 4th fret on the D string, and then dropping down from the F natural on the D string to your E, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, down to your D. That's the exact same thing we were doing on the C, but this time with the notes that comprise the D chord. So sliding into the 3rd, hitting the 5, flat 3rd, down the 2 to the 1. So there, that's taken the 2 to the 1, that B is the 6th in D. So you'll hear that note also a lot. And the main point here is that there are cool licks to learn here, and maybe I'll do another video where I focus on specifically on the licks. But the point is that these licks are built around a musical idea, and that musical idea is sliding from that minor third or flatted third into the major third. Really builds the foundation of the country sound, the bluegrass sound, and the blues a lot too. So getting familiar with the fretboard to me means having something in your head. You know that sound is cool, that I'm sliding, this time in G, sliding B flat up into that high G there, flat at the 3rd, down to the 2, and then the open G. Like you hear that and you know that sounds good. Instead of just memorizing that lick, I think it's really important to take that next step and understand what you're doing. Man, that sounds good. And you get into that sound, and then if you know what you're doing, you know that you're sliding into the 3rd, playing that flat 3rd, playing that 2, playing that 1, that G. So B, B flat, A, down to the G, resolving. Then when you get to that C chord, you can do the same lick. And often that's all you need to do. You can just keep replicating that idea through the progression. So then when you hit the C chord, I did the exact same lick there. And then when I hit that C, flatted 3rd, 3rd, G, taking that 3rd, and then you can take that flatted 3rd and off down to the D note, the second note in the chord there, or the second note in the scale, and then resolve down to the C, because we're playing C, you play back to that G. It just frees you up to see within these chords that we're playing, these common, typical country cowboy chords, there are these musical ideas that we can bring to life.